Hey, good day, everybody. Welcome to the Indian Boxer Ring. My name is Ishwar, and today our guest is Rosina Brace, the renowned breeder and breeder of the kennel Sjecoin boxers. Rosina has been in the breed for the last 50 years, and she has bred a lot of boxers which have won both in Australia and also in other countries, for she has exported dogs into other parts of the world to help them build up on their breeding program. Rosina is also a specialty judge. She has judged boxers, uh, specialties extensively in Australia, in New Zealand, in Asia, and that would be in Philippines and in Malaysia. And she's judged in UK, and she's also judged the American boxer specialty in as well. It's with great pleasure that I welcome Rosina to the Indian Boxer Ring. Rosina, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you, and I must thank you for having me.
Wonderful. It should be close to 8:30 p.m. In Australia. Thanks for making time to actually do this interview for us. And there's a lot to learn, and I'm excited to actually have this opportunity to interview you. And again, for those viewers that are tuned in, please feel free to ask your questions in the comment section so that I can ask that question to Rosina as well. So, Rosina, to start off with, I just wanted to ask you some basic questions. And again, we have a mixture of people who know you, who have been in the game for many years, and also people who are new to the breed as well. And for the benefit of people who are new to the breed, could you tell our viewers how you started your love affair with boxes? How did that start?
Well, the first boxer I had was a rescue dog. She was due to be destroyed because she had been killing poultry some distance from where we lived. And I rescued her, and it was quite a sad story, but she had two things that have remained with me to this very day. She had the most beautiful eyes and expression and a wonderful temperament. She was a what we call a traditional boxer. She was a brindle with very little white. And when I got her, she was around about 2. And my husband at that time, she came into season, and I really didn't know about dogs and coming into season. I didn't have any experience with that before. And we decided we would breed her. And there was a lady who had come from England to New Zealand, and she had brought with her a number of boxes, including 3 outstanding stud dogs. The oldest dog was a dog called Dynamic, and he was a son of a very famous Rainy Lane Sirocco, an American dog. And he was the most expensive stud dog. And although we were very young, I was 19 at the time, he was the most expensive. He was 25 guineas at stud, and the other dogs were cheaper. But he, in my eye, and I looked at him and I thought, no, this is a really lovely dog and a lovely temperament, and that's the dog we used. And that was the beginning of the Anasaur, which is Rosina spelled back to front, start of the breeding of the dogs. And then I got in touch with the lady that used to own Rainy Lane Sirocco, a lady called Marion Fairbrother, who bred the Gremlin boxers. And I got a lovely letter from her in 1960 showing me a photo of Sirocco. I still have that letter to this day. And she was one of my first mentors. And I will never forget her. And I went to England and stayed with her and went to a show with her and took her very famous dog she had at that time to a show where he won under Bill Siggers. And anyway, and then it went on from there. I used to go to the dog shows, the national, and I saw all these boxes there, and I thought, my word, I thought my Scamper, the one I rescued, was the best dog ever. But in fact, technically, she was not. She had a number of problems, but I don't like to dwell on problems. I like to look at the finer points in the animal. So
Right.
I saw all these dogs and I thought, well, I can get a dog like that. So I bought a very, very good bitch, which I made the top winning boxer in New Zealand for 3 years running. And she was of American English breeding. Then I was able to get a son and from another dog, and he was by an English champion called Summerdale Seamus. And I got him. He was a bit of a villain, actually. He had a very fiery temperament, and he was a lot of dog to handle. But that was my start. And I thought, I looked at pictures and I looked at lots of books and I tried to learn. And I like to think I have a very good eye for a dog, and from when they're born, and we select the dogs, and I love the American dogs, I have to say. I do. I admire them, their elegance, their smoothness. They are just the top rung for me.
Wonderful. I have a lot more questions about American dogs and the UK dogs as well, but that's for later. But you mentioned that you had a mentor when you started with boxes, which was Miss Fairbrother. Um,
Yes,
and
brother.
what was your learning curve? How did you learn when you got into boxes? As a newcomer, what were the things? Did you resort more to shows, going to shows, or did you go to talk to people? Where did most of your learning come from, or was it from the books that you read, or what did your mentor, help you? How did your mentor help you in learning about the breed?
Well, Marion Fairbrother pointed me in the right direction. She had sent another very good dog out to New Zealand who was of American English breeding, and called a dog called Summerdale Defiant. And she sent that dog over to Wellington on the ferry from the South Island of New Zealand for me to show. And I used to take him to shows. Anyway, that dog was recommended that I use the dog by Marion Fairbrother because she thought that he would be able to help me to get the better boning I need and the beautiful feet that the English dogs have. They have very good bone, English dogs, and they have excellent feet with very short toes. And they have the shorter hock and the driving power, which comes from the rear end, as you know. And I have to say that when I started out showing dogs, I was a very clumsy handler and I didn't have a clue. And one day in the ring, I took this lovely bitch I had just purchased, and the judge said to me, "You do this, you do that." And he showed me how to handle the dog. And I try to help people now when I judge dogs. If they bring a very good dog to me and they're making it look terrible, well, I have to tell them that please don't do that. Straighten up the front legs. I know you're not supposed to do that, but I do it anyway because a good handler can make an average dog look fabulous, but a bad handler can make a good dog look terrible. So anyway, I learned how to handle the dogs. I had another very, very good mentor on the way I dressed in the ring. And I think that is most important, that when you are taking a dog into the ring that you love and you're going to show it off, then it's a fashion show. And you present the dog as you would anything that you really love. And I think it's a picture that shows the judge, well, here comes a handler and they're smartly dressed. They've got a very nice dog, and it immediately catches your eye. When they first all walk into the ring, that's what you look at. And you can generally pick out your winner before you even touch the dog. That's how I see a good boxer. It's a presentation. It's a little bit like a jockey taking a very good horse to the winning post. And that's how I would sum it up.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
I actually wanted to ask you some questions about breeding principles.
Yes.
Now, there is actually any newcomer in the breed. The first thing that actually they read about breeding principles is inbreeding, line breeding, and outcrossing. Right, the principles of breeding. Now, for the benefit of the members that have tuned in, Could you share some light on when one should resort to the above breeding practices, namely the inbreeding, line breeding, and outcrossing?
Well, the very first thing with breeding any animals, particularly our loved boxer, is to get the best female that you can. And hopefully she will have a line bred pedigree, and you will research yourself at least 3 generations back to make certain that those dogs are of good merit. Then, when you wish to breed her, you can choose any male dog you want. A male dog should have a tight pedigree, he should be line bred, and he should have what I call a stud dog pedigree, which can enable him to reproduce. Having said that, if you mate a male dog to the female, and they're not related, you may need 1 or 2 generations to get what you are actually going to look for. But my opinion, the females are absolutely the queen of any kennel. They really are. They're the foundation of your breeding stock. Without good, strong, healthy, genetically tested females, you've got nothing. And it's not a game for the faint-hearted. It really isn't.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a long time, and and then when they are unwell, they have to be very, very carefully looked after, and they have to have correct diets, and the whelping has to be supervised at all times. When we have a litter here, we do a 24/7 round the clock for 2 weeks until the babies are settled and the mother, and particularly if they have had a C-section, because it's dangerous time, and puppies are quite small compared to the mother.
Mm-hmm.
And one has to make certain they're warm and comfortable and on dry vet bed and kept scrupulously clean. That's the main thing. You don't want anything going wrong with any babies.
Rosina, I actually wanted to ask you a question.
based on what you said.
You mentioned about a producing sire. What do you mean by a producing sire? What is that producing sire?
Well, a producing sire is one with an excellent pedigree. And if the listeners wanted to look at the pedigree of Golden Gloves, he was a very, very tightly bred dog, very, very tightly. He had many, many lines to the famous Bangaway, and I was most fortunate, very fortunate, to be able to buy that dog. I really, really was. And I had been looking for a good dog to import for 2 years. That's how long it took. Mm-hmm. And I was offered another dog, which I won't mention, but I was offered another dog, and my husband said to me, well, you better get on an aeroplane and go to America and have a look at this dog. And I was after a particular bloodline, which was Sjecoins, Shadrach, and the listeners will know, the American listeners will know. And when I got there, I had flown almost halfway around the world. I had a look at the dog that I went to buy, and he just didn't sort of fill my eye. He was a lovely dog, but he didn't fill my eye. And the gentleman that was showing me the dog said to me a great compliment. He said, well, I've seen you judge several times, and I didn't think you would like this dog. Now, that was really something. So I went all dejected downstairs in the motel, and I came across Ellie Linda Holmwood, the Merrilane's breeder, who I had met previously. And we had a brief chat, and she asked me, did you get your dog? And I said, no. That wasn't quite the dog I was looking for. And she said, well, you still want a dog? And I said, yeah, well, yes, I do. And she said, well, come with me. So we went round to her motorhome, and she slid the door open. And my eyes nearly popped out, I have to say. I was so excited to see these glorious dogs, and with their cropped ears and their very excited temperaments. And she called to the handler, Mal Holloman, and she said, get out, Mitz. and she got this dog out, and he jumped on the ground, and he just stood there, and I felt goosebumps. I was very excited, and I negotiated with her. The condition was that the dog could stay, providing he was finished his title, to make the sire, his sire knockout, a sire of merit. So we agreed to that. We had the dog campaigned in America by Mal Holloman, and then the dog came on to Australia. And he did 9.5 months quarantine. It was shocking. I sent him to a very special kennels in England, and my son visited him there, and he had no blankets, he had newspaper, and I was cross because I paid for all that, and I paid for heating help for him and everything. But anyway, the dog arrived here, and after some very stressful times when he came out of quarantine, he was in really bad condition. He really, really was. He was skinny, and he had fat deposits on his eyes, and I thought he might die. I called in specialists to come to the quarantine station to look at the dog, and I took him to a reproduction vet, and he said, well, the dog's been starved. That's why he's like that. And the first thing that will go in any dog is the coat, and then the reproduction organs. So you can imagine how we felt. So he was put on very special diet, and he came good, and he's the leading sire in the country of 41 champions, and I think it's 9 grand champions. He beat Simon Wintercast by a few.
Right. I think it was coincidental that you had 2 dogs, 2 influential sires around the same time. You had Simon, which was your Sjecoin winter forecast, and also you had Mitz, which was the Meadowlane's Golden Gloves. They kind of lived around the same time, and they should have contributed a lot to your kennel as well.
Yes, they lived together. I never let them run together. They sort of used to eye each other off, which is natural for them to do. And we have very, very good facilities at Montalbot, but when we lived in the city, and now, of course, we have a huge property. Pardon me, but Golden Gloves left another very good sire, a dog called Angus, and he also sired a number of champions, and as well as one more time, who was Andrew, and the sire, of course, of Harvey. Yes, they all are sires of merit. Yes.
I do have some questions about Harvey, and I want to ask you about Simon and Mitz again. But I do want to actually go back into the question about the breeding, about the outcross again, because this is really beneficial for all those viewers that have tuned in. And I want to actually ask you all the right questions here. Now, would you recommend, Rosina, an outcross with a sire who is totally different in phenotype to the bitch that you have? Like, for example, the sire that you're picking, he's got the tightly line-bred pedigree, and the bitches that you have are line-bred, and you're going out to a sire who's an outcross. But would you, if he's a totally different in phenotype, would you recommend that? Or should you be using an outcross sire, which is close in phenotype to your own bitches?
Correct. I wouldn't use a dog that was not the type of dog that I wanted to produce. I wouldn't do that. The dog has got to have all the correct features. We start with, of course, the head, because it is a headed breed, and he must have a good expression. He must have a nice big nose, which a lot of American dogs have gorgeous noses, as opposed to what we used to have. We used to have pinch nostrils, which were very unhelpful to the dog's breeding. And I would, pardon me, I would only breed to the type of dog I want to produce. So that dog then has not only got to look nice and conform to the standard, he has got to have a good pedigree. Excuse me. I have to get a drink. That's better. Thank you. Sorry. Yes, that's I think the most important thing is the females, as I've said, and they need to have a nice tight pedigree. If they haven't got a tight pedigree, they can have one line to the stud dog that you're wishing to use, which of course will make it line breeding.
Mm-hmm.
The best puppies that we have bred have been from father-daughter matings.
Mm-hmm.
And we are now in Australia not allowed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot do anything that's close. And I've never done a brother-sister mating, or I've only done father-daughter matings and doubled up on that. And when you do that and you get the good results, then, of course, the next generation, you must outcross. You've got to go out. You can't keep going in all the time. You not only get good things, you can get bad things as well. And nobody wants bad things. We want sound, healthy puppies.
Right. I actually wanted to ask you this. They say the best breeding that you can do is when you use the sire of the sire to the grandsire of the dam, right? They say that would be the best ideal breeding. The sire of the sire should be the
That's
grandsire of the
grandfather.
dam. Would you say that would
That's the
give the best results in a line breeding program?
Well, it depends what the pedigree is. I mean, I can't say without looking at pedigrees and seeing dogs, but that is a very good combination to the grandfather. It is a good combination. I have just very recently, in the last 9 weeks, done that breeding, and it's a repeat of the bitch we call Stepping Out in Style, Priscilla, and we have kept a lovely little male puppy, and it was a beautiful litter. There were 6 males and 1 female. And I was extremely pleased. And that we have the grandfather here. He's now 11 and a half. And, of course, he is English breeding. One line back on the 3rd generation of Golden Gloves. But it's insignificant because it's not strong enough. And I like to breed possibly to no further back than 3rd generation. You can,
Wonderful.
if you're doubling up consistently, you've got to really do a lot of research and be careful. As I said before, breeding dogs is not for the faint-hearted, and we don't breed very many. We might have a litter every maybe 14 or 16 months or 2 years, and I run a few bitches here, but some of them have never been bred. And even Sweet Georgia Brown, our latest grand champion, she was the top winning boxer on the point score for 2018, which is a rare thing for a female. But she was 5 years old when she had her first pup. And I have a daughter of hers, which hasn't been to shows because of this COVID disaster we have going on in Australia and the world.
Right, true. It is sad indeed, and I hope the end is in sight. We all certainly hope so. I wanted to actually ask you. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you say, please.
Okay, all right.
What would you like to ask?
Oh no, I actually wanted to ask you. The influential dogs in the breed, have not produced, and I talk about the influential dogs. I'm talking about the influential bitches in the breed. They have not produced anything outstanding. What is your take on that? Why is it that the influential bitches in the breed, like I'll give you, I don't want to name names, but the influential bitches in terms of the top winning bitches have not produced anything outstanding. And that brings a question that they were shown for too long, and they didn't actually do a lot of breeding. They didn't spend a lot of time in the developing box. So as a breeder, how important is it for you to actually show a bitch and special a bitch? Or should you be should that be something which which should be carefully thought out? Or when would you decide to show a bitch or special a bitch for a longer time?
Well, it depends entirely on the owner, and it's the owner's choice to keep that animal in the show ring. Some people like to do that. I have had some beautiful bitches and hesitantly bred them, and then, of course, they lose all that youthful look and that trim, smart, taut look. It takes a lot of work to get them back into condition. But I have come to the conclusion that if a bitch is bred earlier, it is better for her, really, and then you can rest her and continue on showing her. But some people might not like to do that. And as I said to you, Sweet Georgia Brown had her first litter. She's only had the one litter, and she's 6 years old now. She had her first litter at 5. She was kept in the ring, and she did very, very well for herself, and of course for us. And but to me, it wasn't an important thing that she had to have a litter. And when we have a litter, we generally keep 1 or 2 puppies from that litter, and we only breed for ourselves, not for the public market. The rest are sold, and they're put on a limited register, and they go to lovely homes where they are members of the family rather than being sold to anyone to show. And we have, we think of them, and rather than the show ring. When you think about it, the show ring is really only someone's opinion of what they think of your dog. And sometimes you might not agree with the placings, but you have to smile and nod and thank them and walk out, and always be gracious to a judge. They're there to do their best as far as their knowledge in the breed is limited. And there are some brilliant boxer judges around the world, and the all-rounders, which is the all-rounder judges, some of them are very good, especially the ones that concentrate on utility like I do. I'm licensed to judge a couple of groups. I think it's 46 breeds in all, but I really only like to judge boxers. I've got very fussy in my older age, shall we say. Anyway, it's just something. And I personally think if people don't want to breed from their bitch, but they want to show it, then that's what they should do, and love it and win it. It doesn't matter whether it has babies or not. It doesn't know. If you have a problem if you have males that have false pregnancies. That can be quite daunting, and you have to know how to deal with that. That would be for another time.
Agreed. Absolutely. That's a fair point. Again, end of the day, if you have a bitch that likes to show and you would like to show the bitch, I think there should be no stopping it because of the reason that you have to bring her back to breeding, because you might have some other bitches in your kennel to do that. And that's I think that's perfectly, you made that perfectly clear for our viewers. I wanted to actually also ask you about the type, Rosina. How important is breeding a type for a kennel? Like, for example, if people saw Sjecoin boxes, even from a distance, they would know that this is actually from Rosina. She's the breeder for this dog. But how important is it for a kennel to have a type?
Well, it's your hallmark, if you like to put it like that. It's a hallmark, and the Sjecoin boxes have got a stamp on them. They have, and people tell me, "Oh, I saw a friend at the park, and they got a dog from you, but they all look alike," and that's how they should do. If you consistently breed the same, I mean, my dogs generally all look alike, and they might have different markings, and some are brindle and some are fawn, and it's just. It's really, it's very important to establish your own kennel prefix when you start out. And that's why I stress to people that they should get the best bitch that they can. They mightn't be able to breed the best bitch, but if you can possibly go and buy the best one that you can, then, and you tell the breeder, honestly, I want a very, very good bitch, and it's got to have an excellent head and good conformation and a good temperament, then you talk to them, and that you will give it a good home. That's the main thing. And I will not breed it continuously. We cannot breed continuously in this country. We cannot. And there's an age cutoff for dogs and females. Pardon me. And they are on the way. It's easier to buy a good dog than it is to breed one. It really is.
Right. True. Agreed. Now, again, having bred close to 187, I believe my last count or my research tells me that you're close to 200 boxes champions in that you've bred. Now, this actually means that you're actually placing your dogs in proper homes, because I'm sure most of these 187 boxes that you bred would have been championed by owners that bought the dog from you. So could you tell our viewers how you actually pick and select the buyers? The people who want to buy your dogs, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who are interested. How do you pick and choose them? What is the criteria that you put in place?
Goodness gracious. Well, I do have a criteria. And I say to some people, please don't think I'm prying into your private life. But there are certain things I need to know before I will let a dog come to you. And if I think you are not telling me the truth, I will come and see where you live to know that the dog is coming into a good home. A lot of the puppies that we have, and we don't have very many, are repeat sales. They are people that have had dogs from us over the years that have died of old age, and they're repeat buyers. But when you are selling a dog for showing, or any dog at all, I ask the people, have they had a boxer before? What do they know of the breed? They are a very exuberant breed. They are not a dog for the faint-hearted. Now, by that, I don't mean you have to be in your early 20s. You can be in your later years and very fit and well able to look after a dog if you know the boxer. You must know the boxer. Then I ask them if they own their own homes, because I don't want a dog going into a rental place and then the owner saying, oh, you can't stay here, the dog's got to go. I ask them that. Then I ask them, are they aware of how much it will cost to keep the dog? Now, there's food, and we feed top quality raw canine here and raw beef, eggs, sardines, and other vitamins, livermole and things for colours. Anyway, the thing is that when they answer me, I mean, if I think they're telling me what I call fibs, then I don't take that sale any further. I just say, oh, look, I'm sorry. I really don't think that a boxer is a suitable dog for you. I don't like them to go to little tiny children because they can be rough, and boxer puppies are very, very exuberant, and they like to pull at your clothes and nibble your fingers, and I don't allow that with any wee rare hair. They've got to be really managed from the word go. They are exuberant and they are full of life. And, you don't want the dog going into the wrong home to start off with, and the people can't manage it. So you have to ask in a very gentle way. There is a questionnaire that you can send out, and get them to fill it in and send it back. But people can put down whatever they like. And I do like to speak to people on the telephone, so I get a sense of what they're about. I like to, in other words, sum them up pretty quickly.
True. All
so
right.
That's,
well,
it might seem intrusive, but that's what happens here.
Well, you might actually have a lot of people from India who might actually be interested in your dogs, and they might never know. You might make that trip to India to actually visit their kennel if you send them a dog. But again, jokes apart,
went to Paris. Goodness, that was exciting.
Yes. Now, Rosina, I think you have stated in your website, Sjecoinboxes.com. It's quite extensive. It was really it's really catalogs all the dogs, your journey with boxes, and I recommend viewers who have not been there to actually look at your dogs, to actually go to the website. You've actually captured a lot of details in there. Now, in the website, you also say that you imported dogs from UK and USA to help with your breeding program. What were some of the particular traits or virtues that you saw in the UK or US dogs that prompted you to import these dogs and introduce them into your breeding program?
Well, we'll start off first of all with the English dogs. I used English dogs when I was in New Zealand, and that was all that we had there really. And the first boxer that I had, of course, old Scamp, she was a granddaughter of Frolic Von Dom. It's very long ago, bred by Frost Stockman. Anyway, there were traits that I liked. The present dog I have at the moment is English bred. He came from New Zealand, but he was sired by an English dog, Winnowook Kennels, and he did a lot of winning. And I asked that particular breeder, and I waited a long time to get the dog, and he is with me today. He's 11 and a half years old now and in good health. And he also is the sire of Sweet Georgia Brown. So that was an English breeding to an American line on the female side. That was a very good combination. Anyway, he had good bone. He still has good bone, lovely eyes, outstanding temperament, gorgeous white lower jaw, straight teeth, and a well-balanced dog, short-coupled in the back, square, fabulous hindquarters and feet, and good bone. So I knew then that when he grew, he would be an asset to the dogs here and to other people who wish to use him, to any of the American line-bred bitches that we had. And we introduced that, and now we're on another generation. We're going back the other way to the American dogs.
Okay.
You've got to. I like to think I've got a pretty good eye for a dog, and when we got the American dog, Golden Gloves, because he had bitches from all over the country and from New Zealand. They flew them across to be bred, and you know, I can tell you this now, and I'm not ashamed of it. But when he had a lady friend come, he would only serve her once. He would never make it twice. He would look at them and he'd think, oh, no, you've had your lot. And that was him. He was a character. He really was a character. I've never had a dog like him. He was glorious. He really stole my heart, even when he ripped up the furniture. So he was a bit of a villain.
Right. Rosina, I want to actually ask you this. So you mentioned that the English dogs, you mentioned some virtues with English dogs, like, for example, tight eyes, wide jaws, straight line of teeth, a good substance, short coupling, good croup assembly, and good fronts. What are some of the virtues that you saw with American dogs? What virtues did you see with them? What prompted you to get an American dog?
Well, I love the style. I have to say that. They are what I call smooth. And they generally, the dogs I've seen, the first photo I ever saw of a dog was a dog called Millan's Fashion Hint, a Canadian dog of Sjecoin breeding, an outstanding dog. And when I saw that photo, and I still have that photo today, it's a very old black and white photo, I thought that is the style of dog I want to breed. And I liked the way the dog flowed and the glorious necks. I mean, long necks, good crest of necks, fitting into the shoulders, the straight top lines and the high set tails. And, they just filled my eye. The only criticism I would have at that particular time, and it's really not a criticism, it was a fault, was that the American dogs do not have the feet that the English dogs have. They don't. And I don't know, I haven't been to the States for a few years now, and I had hoped to go this year, but couldn't go because of the coronavirus. But, the two countries, in my opinion, have got a great deal to offer each other if they would only sort of do that, But a good dog's a good dog. You've got to look at all the virtues of the dog, in my opinion, before you start to pick the dog to pieces with faults. There's never been a perfect dog bred. There hasn't.
True.
try hard.
Agreed.
And we get close sometimes. And sometimes we just kid ourselves. But, you know, you've got to be, I think you've got to have an eye. And when the puppies are born, this litter we have now, I can tell you quite honestly, it's the third litter that she's had. She's an American bred, and the grandfather of the litter is the English dog, the one bred by the Winnie breeding. And anyway, when I was in the theatre watching the cesarean, the vet started to take the puppies out, and there were 7 of them. So it took a weeny while, about half an hour. And the first puppy that came out, it laid there, and I thought, oh, God, this is super. That's the puppy I ended up keeping at 9 weeks of age, the first one born. There were several very nice dogs, but if you've got an eye, and when they're born, see everything. They're laying there, you can see the length of their little backs, and where they hold their hindquarters. You can't tell the front construction, but you can get an idea of the muzzle and the cleanliness of the head. And one thing I don't like about some dogs, they have wide skulls, and I do not like a wide skull boxer, and I like flat cheeks, and that's what they should have. And the photos that I have seen of some dogs that are now in India are excellent. There's some very, very good dogs there, but we can't get them into Australia. They have to go via the United States for 6 months and have rabies shots, and I've tried, and you know, it's an impossible situation. And the Australian government will not even let us import semen from dogs that have passed on. They have to be alive, and they make certain that their babies is up to order. It's pretty good, quite frankly.
It is. I can tell from what you're describing that it is very tightly regulated in Australia. The breeding program is tightly regulated. You know, because you did mention that you cannot do a father-daughter breeding, and you can't use artificial insemination. You can't bring semen from a dog which is already dead and gone.
No, we can do artificial insemination here, providing the semen has come in from a live dog, which Sweet Georgia Brown was mated to an American semen. But, you know, and we can collect semen here. And the semen that I've just used is about 14 years old. And, you know, it's good. But you have, when you're going to breed your females, we do 2 specific things. The first thing is they have a vaginal swab to make certain there is no bacteria, and that is done at the first 1 or 2 days of the female's season. Then if there is a problem, they can go on an antibiotic. The next thing we do, we start doing the progesterone levels. I know this is expensive, and you have to go to a veterinarian to have it done and read. And then when the bitch is at her peak, then she is inseminated or live mating. And that's the way we breed dogs here.
Wonderful.
We're very careful because we don't want anything going wrong.
Absolutely, no, for sure. I know that you have, or when I say you, when I say Australia, Australia has seen boxes with dog to tail, and now tail docking is completely banned in Australia as of 2010. Now, how difficult was it for you, Rosina, to transition from a boxer with a dog tail to a boxer with a natural tail? And how difficult was it for breeders and exhibitors? Did it actually see people leaving the breed because of this particular regulation?
Well, it was very difficult for me. I went to a protest to the government buildings. We all went up on the train and we stood outside the parliament and we protested against it going forward in the government, but they took no notice. That was very unfortunate. And when it came in, I have to confess, I cried for days. I do not like the tails. I don't. But the thing is, you have to deal with it. And they do wag them a lot, and they bang them into your legs, and they flick each other in the eye, and you can get some horrible injuries. Pardon me. But unfortunately, it's a natural thing. and is with the natural ear, but it has been very difficult to get used to. And some people used to say that they did with a natural tail. Well, that's a load of rubbish. A dog's got a natural tail. It's born with a natural tail, and it will move correctly whether it's got a tail or not. And the thing is that the difficult part was when you stood the dog in the ring or posed it, what to do with the jolly tail. So I have a way of holding mine. You might have seen the pictures. I put my hand in front, so the rest of the tail sort of hangs away from the animal, and it gives an illusion of being a shorter tail. When the fawn pups are born, they have a black band around them on the tail, and it always is at the same place where the tail would have been docked. It's quite peculiar to see it, really, but that's what we've noticed.
True.
I don't think we can change it. We've tried. We're trying at the moment to get white ones registered. We've got them. My husband did a lot of work with the ANKC, the Australian Council, to get them registered. We can register them now on a limited register, and they can do all other aspects in the show ring except be shown. And my ambition was to be the first person in Australia to show a white boxer, because some of them have been quite outstanding, outstanding.
True.
To me, they appear to live longer than the coloured dogs anyway. So I wouldn't, if you made a white one to a traditional boxer with no white, you will only get a flashy litter. So that's interesting, isn't it? And that's genetically been proven by
True. And again, I think if you go back to the origin of boxers, the first boxer was a white boxer. So I know we have always had whites in the breed. I totally understand. Now, I want to actually ask you a question about Australian boxers specifically. I know that Australia has boxers from UK, from US, and quite regularly, and also from Europe as well. Now I see some boxers from Italy, and Spain that are being imported into Australia. Now, having said this, is there a type called as an Australian type in boxers? Like there's an American type, there's an English type. Is there a type called as an Australian type?
No, I don't believe there is. I think the breed here is very mixed, and quite frankly, I think the breed's in a bit of a mess. I really do. The people have gone all over the place, and that's their right to be able to do that. They breed to the type of dogs they want to have and produce, and that is not the way we do it. But, I can't really comment. People are free to do whatever they please, and there have been some different dogs come in. I have not seen them, I might say. The last imported dog I saw came in from Holland, and a nice dog. And when we were in Holland, we went to the Verdomedals, and they had some really lovely dogs, but they were older type breeders, and they were good dogs. And when I started off with boxers, as I said, I used to read a lot of books, and I was strongly of the opinion that the best boxers I had seen were from France. Now, what they're like there nowadays, I couldn't tell you because I haven't Googled anything up or looked at any other countries. But I'm sure that, a good dog is a good dog. It doesn't really matter what country it comes from. But the American dogs, to me, are more consistent in their type. They really have a hallmark of their own. They really do. And as you can tell, I'm very pro-American dogs.
Right.
That's me.
True. One of the dogs that you actually exported internationally was a dog that you sent to India. He was also coincidentally the dog of the year in India, bred in India. Sorry, not bred in India, imported into India, exported by you. This dog was called Harvey, or Sjecoin Game Time, as many people would know. Can you share our viewers on how this dog landed in India? How did that happen? How did you send that dog to India?
That's a very exciting story. I had a telephone call from a young woman who asked me if I had a dog that might be available to go to India. And I said, oh, I don't know about that. I'd have to think about it. And she said, well, can I come and see the dog? So I said yes, and she came to see the dog, and she brought her young son with her. And Harvey was a youngster then; he was still a puppy, and nearing him, I think it was about 10 months. And they said, "Oh yes, I think this person would be interested." And I said, "Well, is the dog for you?" And she said, "No, it's for somebody else." And I said, "Well, who is that?" She said, "Well, I really can't tell you, but it's someone high up." And I said, "Well, what do you mean by that?" She said, "No, it's someone of importance." So I said, "Oh, goodness gracious. Well, I don't know about that. Maybe you should get that person to contact me." So I had a phone call from a man who sounded very charming. And he said to me he was interested in the dog. And I said, "Well, who are you?" And he said, "Well, I think he said, I'm from the presidential palace." And I said, I got such a shock. I said, "Oh, are you the president?" I sounded like a fool. And he said, "No, I'm the son of the president." I said, "Oh, goodness gracious, what do you want this dog for?" He said, "Well, I love boxers, and I'd like to come and see this dog. And if you are willing, I would like to take the dog to India." So in the next few months, or it might have been weeks, down came AD by taxi to our home in the city. And he saw Harvey, and he loved Harvey, and he wanted to take Harvey. So I said, "Well, I'd have to get all the paperwork ready." Then we went on a wonderful shopping spree to a place called Victoria Market. He bought everything you could imagine for this dog. Anyway, and then the dog went back to India, and it was started to be shown. So my husband and I, we decided we would go visit Harvey. So off we went to India on a wonderful trip. And we were picked up at the airport. We didn't have to wait in long queues to get through. We had a special chauffeur to take us, and we went to stay in AD's apartment in New Delhi. There was Harvey. So we had a great time. And I said to one of the fellows that were doing the cooking and looking after us, "Well, I'd like to take the dog for a walk. I must go for a walk. I'm pinned up." "Oh, no, you can't go out on the road." I said, "Oh, yes, we can." So I said, "You get the dog, put the lead on," and down we went. Well, we had to pass an armed guard first who had a big rifle, and off we went down the street. And he was walking along. I said, "You go first because I don't know where to go." And I followed with the dog. Well, that was something. I thought there would have been a car accident for sure, because you know how they drive over there. And they were all gawking and looking and tooting their car horns as we walked along the road. It was quite hilarious, really. It was great fun. And we stayed there for quite a while. And we went to the palace, of course, and had lunch and played with the dog and had a great time. Yeah, it was a wonderful experience. And Adi and his wife came down here just a little while ago, and he came and they bought me a lovely gift, and they said they had to come because it was their 30th year of our great friendship. And I thought that was lovely.
Wonderful. Excellent. Very, very good.
And of course, the dog went on to be great winner, 16 best in shows, all breeds.
Yes, he was actually he was a big winner and very well cataloged in India as well. A lot of people know about him, and that's the legacy that he's left in India. I want to actually go back. So sorry, go ahead.
Did he sign many champions? I don't know.
He did actually leave his mark. He did leave his mark, Rosina, in the breed as well. Yes, he did. He did. In fact, my first boxer was actually not directly from him, but it was of his lines. So the boxer that I got, she was a brindle female. I will share the pictures with you later. Now again, your journey so far, it's almost it's more than 50 years. And again, I don't mean to age you in any way, but your journey has been more than 50 years. Now you've seen boxers evolve from the past to the present. You've judged specialties extensively around the world. In the countries the boxes that you like. What are your thoughts about the breed? Do you think the breed has progressed, or do you think do you think the golden time was back in the 70s, or do you think we are moved ahead with the breed?
Well, I think the golden times really was more in the 80s. Really, boxes were 2-4, and talking about here, we used to have well over 100 shown, and usually about 2,000 to 2,500 dogs per show. That was a lot of dogs to have to beat to get a best in show. Anyway, today there are not many shown at all. You're lucky if there's 10. That's in the state of Victoria I'm talking about. It's a great shame. They seem to have fallen off. And I spoke to someone I know quite well in Sydney the other night, and I said, do you think it's because of the tails? And they really weren't able to give me an answer. The one thing I do think is changing is the height. The dogs in the US seem to be getting quite tall. I don't mind a tall dog, but I don't really like anything over 25 inches at the shoulder. The females can go to 23.5. I don't mind a smaller female as long as she's very pretty. And the pretty and petite female is just gorgeous to look at. And you don't want the females too tall, because then they start to look a little doggy. But the thing is that I think that every breed, it doesn't matter, pardon me, what breed you have, they go through different phases. And I personally think that when a breed is very popular, that's not a good thing for the breed. It's not. You get everybody, well, I don't like to use the term Tom, Dick and Harry, but everybody wanting to get in on the bandwagon and breed dogs flat out. And we have people here who we call puppy farmers, and that's not good. They don't need to register their dogs. They ask a lot of money. They give no guarantees, and there's no protection from the Kennel Club at all. And people here are being scammed and it's selling dogs that aren't even boxers. They're not boxers at all. And meeting people at service stations handing dogs over. But the thing is that I do think the dogs from the 70s to the present have got better. Here, I can really only talk about my own dogs. We've got nicer heads, and we've had some good stud dogs come in that have produced some smart dogs. And you have to look across the board as a wide. You can't sort of shut your eyes and not see anything. You have to be aware of what's going on. We haven't been to a Sydney Royal for some time now, but we've always done extremely well there, very, very well there. And so what the dogs are like up here, I don't know, but they would be the major parts. South Australia, I judged there not that long ago, and I was delighted to put up a young boxer. He went on to junior and show, which was nice. A nice stylish dog. And I think that people really like, people that know, that have an eye for a dog, like style. It's whether it's dressing or manicured clothes or handsome looking men or whatever. They like style. And that's what fills your eye.
Right. And so are you saying that boxes have gotten more stylish? They have gotten more elegant over the years that they were not before?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. Got it. Wonderful.
We don't have those short, stocky legs anymore.
True. I actually wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you a follow-up question to that, Rosina, based on what you said. Artificial insemination. I know artificial insemination in Australia is not allowed of dogs that are dead and gone. But in the US, it's still done. They are using sires that are dead and gone 20, 30 years back. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think it's actually going back and using those studs is actually the right thing to do? If we have progressed, like you said, why are we going back and using those dogs? Of course, this is not you that is
Well,
doing this. I just want to get your thoughts. That's
yeah,
all.
I think that's an excellent idea. There have been some excellent dogs, great winners, and the 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 people that were so thoughtful enough to store the semen and it was stored correctly, they are very fortunate to be able to go back to those outstanding animals. I think that's excellent. We had 17 breedings from Golden Gloves and 17 from Winter Forecast. It was stored incorrectly. We used it 8 times and we had 8 misses because the extender that it was used in the very early beginnings in Australia, when it was thawed out, the semen died. It was hopeless. But here now it's a lot better, a lot better. It's technology. It's all about technology. But no, I think that's a good idea to be able to use those dogs. I really do. And some of them, I do know a couple that have been used, and I think that's wonderful. And they were very, very good specimens of the breed. And to be able to go back and use that. I've tried to bring in semen. I even went to Canberra myself about trying to bring in some semen of a dead dog, but I was told no, and would I like to bring rabies into the country? And he put all this sort of nonsense up in front of me, and I thought, well, look, you're in the old age, get in the real world. But anyway, he wouldn't budge, and I couldn't get a permit to bring it in.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Rosina, I think we're close to time, but I still have a last couple of questions. I hope you're okay with that.
Yes.
I wanted to actually ask you, as a breeder and a judge, how do you pick the best puppies in your litter, and do you make that decision based on flashy markings?
No, definitely not. It's construction, absolute construction. I like to look at them when they're born, when they're wet, as I say, and then the next thing is when they get their eyes open, then I get a better balance of the eyes. I like them to be fully pigmented, that black pores in each eye. It's not 100%, but I do like that. And then when they get up on their little feet and they hold their tails up, you get an attitude. They're only tiny then, and generally they start stumbling around from about 2 weeks of age, and they start to move. And as they progress through the weaning period, you get an idea of when they're feeding and which ones are dominant and which aren't. And, when you have what I call an even litter, which is what we like to produce, that I mean even in type and size, then you have a bit of a problem. You have to pick. And I had, in the last litter we had, I selected 2 very nice males, and I eventually had to make up my mind which one we would run on, and we've done that. It's not easy if you're not used to it. If over there in India, if anyone could get some help to be able to tell the breeder, about the puppies and which ones. But if they've got a really outstanding mother, then they should be looking for something that looks like the mother and the father and the combination, and that fits the bill. In other words, you will know it. Your own eye will tell you as they progress in age, and sometimes we might run dogs until they're 8 months old just to make certain. And then go with them, or they are placed in very good homes.
Wonderful. That's excellent.
Is that
No, I think it's a very valuable advice. In terms of puppy selection, I think that's a great advice. I actually want to ask you this one final question, Rosina. What would be your advice to newcomers who are starting out with a breed? I know you already gave one advice, which was about picking the right bitch, which is the best line bred possible bitch that you could get. Is there anything else? What are some of the things that you would like to give them, like passing on the knowledge to them? What are some of the things you would like them to do?
Well, when they're going to look for an animal, I would suggest that they contact very good breeders, and there are some good ones in India, and ask them if they could have a puppy, a female, or if they could go on a waiting list to be considered. And then you would, when you go to see that puppy, you make certain that it has a lovely temperament, that it doesn't run away from you, that you can sit down on the ground and let the puppy come to you. Because puppies, you know, they're used to their playmates and their mother, and they may be a little anxious with strangers. So you've got to let the dog come to you. And if you can see a puppy that takes your eye, then you can ask the breeder if that's the one that they could have, or could the breeder suggest the better puppy in the litter if they're not sure. Some people know what they want, and some people aren't sure enough because they're new people, and you have to treat them with respect and show them that, you know, you care about the breed and you're happy for them to have a puppy, but you have to find out what they want the puppy for. Do they want a show dog, or do they want a companion? Mm-hmm. And sometimes the dogs that are more what I call traditionally marked, that means with a black mask and maybe white socks and a bit of white, or maybe no white at all, sometimes they are better puppies in a litter than the ones with the flashy markings. Mm-hmm. But having said that, it's the flashy markings that take your eye. You can't help it. That's nature. Mm-hmm. But you've got to know what you're looking at. If you're looking at a traditional boxer, there's been some beautiful ones. They really have. And we've made quite a few of them champions. And, you know, I know people might say, oh, that's easy because it's you, but that's not the point. I would never take a dog in the ring that I didn't think was top quality. I wouldn't do that to myself, to my husband, or to the judge. I just wouldn't do that. And the main thing is, if you're going to show a dog, that you present yourself well as a compliment to the lovely dog you were going to show.
Right. True.
That's what
Excellent. Well, you know what? This was a pleasure. I don't know how this 1 hour went past. You know, it's a lot of learning, and thank you so much for sharing your journey, your knowledge with boxes. And I think we can. I think you're close to bedtime. You know, otherwise I would have kept you up for another hour or two. But I don't want to do that. You have your schedule. But again, I do want to thank you again for taking the time to share your journey with boxes with the Indian Boxer Ring. Thank you so much, Rosina.
Thank you. Be safe and be well. Good night.
Thank you. All right, good night.